Welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Hannah Fernandez, and you're watching SCORE TV. SCORE is a nonprofit organization that provides free business mentoring and other services to startups and established small businesses across the United States. So whether you are a new entrepreneur or have been in business for a long time, our SCORE mentors could offer you some free business advice, mentoring, and other services. To connect with us, you could check out our website at chicago.score.org, or you could email us at info@scorechicago.org, or you could call us at 312-353-7724. This is a live show, so please feel free to call in and ask us your questions. The phone number to call in is 312-738-1060. Now, if you want to learn how to build an app, my guest today could help. James Quake Cantrell is the founder of Quake Technology, which is the most innovative mobile app solutions and game development companies in Chicago. James, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. I'm so glad to be here. It's such an honor, and I love everything about SCORE.
Fantastic. So your business builds apps for a range of clients, correct?
Yes.
So that's a great place to be right now with lots of opportunities. So what inspired you to be in this field?
So originally I started with the game design industry, and I did a lot of independent game production. From there I pivoted onto becoming a professor of game design, and then from there to software development.
Sure.
And I realized that video games are about 50 times harder than the average app. So I was like, this is a good pivot where we could bring the technology from gaming into the small business arena.
Gotcha. So I know that a lot of small business owners, always come to me and they say, I have all sorts of great ideas. So when you run across small business owners, entrepreneurs, how do you determine whether an app is a good one or not?
So that's a good question. So actually, when you're dealing with businesses and app, we want to really quantify whatever it is that they're going to spend money on.
Okay.
With mobile apps, we're in a unique position to get analytics. So sometimes they can start with a trial of their app to get 30 days of data to see if it's really working in the direction that they need to go. But also, before we even do any coding or spend any money, we can do what's called a Pretotype. And a Pretotype is something that you create before a prototype.
Okay.
I will create a landing page website for them and have it linked to a CRM, customers relations management program, and capture emails to see if they get enough responses about the type of app that they want to launch to quantify that it's a valid investment.
Oh, gotcha. So you can tell if it's actually a feasible app and if there's interest in the market.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. So can you tell us how you narrow down what an app should do and what features it should have?
Yes. So when we're talking about a mobile app, there are 4 key areas that actually really shine for small businesses. One has to do with social media marketing. The second one has to do with loyalty and rewards program. The third has to do with push notifications. I once bought in my former misspent youth 1 million flyers for a party that I threw. And it was a successful party, but 1 million flyers is very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Especially back in the 90s. So the thing is, you can send out 1 million push notifications. That's actually better than sending out 1 million flyers. A mobile app can actually, you send out as many push notifications as that customer needs.
Without spending thousands of dollars?
Yes, it's actually free.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And then the fourth area would be, of course, their store. So having your own point of sale system, instead of trying to have your product on Amazon and then trying to get people to get to your site and then also get to the Amazon site, why don't you become your own Amazon? And with your own mobile app, that's what they can do. They can actually become their own branded store to push their brand, as well as have the ability to make transactions done 24/7.
Gotcha. And I know that building an app can be intimidating for a lot of people, right?
Yes.
And I definitely do not want to be the smartest person in the room. So in building an app, what kind of team do you need to set in place?
Yes. So when you're talking about building apps, you need programmers. But then also there's an area of apps that mostly, especially the Midwest and some of the other cities are weak at, which is UI and UX. We have some really good UI, UX guys here. But let's just be honest. I mean, right now, all the top talent is in Silicon Valley. New York, and believe it or not, Toronto.
Toronto.
Yes, that's one of the biggest areas for game design and UI UX guys. They really, really are recruiting very hard right now. So when you talk about your team, you need the coders, and then you also need UI for user interface and UX for user experience, as well as you need some of the other ancillary business personnel as well.
Gotcha. And can you clarify UX? Is that more like the front line? Are those the team of people that actually make something pretty and beautiful
Yeah,
and
so
user-friendly?
UI is the user interface, so that's the look. So you want guys that are like really, really good at prototyping, creating mock-ups, and they have to be pros at Photoshop. When you talk about UX, it kind of overlaps, but actually it is different. Now with the user experience, I have a colleague that's a psychologist, and a lot of UX guys with a psychology background, I noticed there's a big advantage to any software company because it's all about the human interaction.
Absolutely.
And where the buttons go, how they experience with it, and whether it's a game or app, if it's not fun, if it's not clear laid out, the experience is poor and people aren't going to use it.
Absolutely. And you need those people because that's where the money is, when somebody actually wants to go ahead and use it.
True, true.
Gotcha. So talk to us like a third grader in simple terms. Can you walk us through and explain the process of building an app?
Yes, so when you're talking about building an app, you're talking about creating magic. And the thing is with magic or anything that's substantial, anything that's going to take a team of people to build, you have to start with a blueprint.
Okay.
And a lot of designers and developers actually skip this step. I had to kind of check myself a year ago because I noticed we were building apps for clients and we would skip the step of creating a flowchart and wireframe. That's very essential. You have to start with creating a paper version of that app, which is going to be their wireframe and their flowchart. Then after the client signs off on that, then it's very prudent if they actually do a mock-up before we even do any coding. Right now, Adobe has their mock-up program, Adobe XD, and it's free, so it's open source. So that's why I'm mentioning it.
Perfect.
Yeah, so open source software. And actually, it's a nice tool.
Right.
Yeah.
And a roadmap is very important because that is your blueprint. It actually points to what's doable, what's not, what's going to work, what's not going to work. So in these steps that you're telling me about, what does success look like at each of the stage of the process?
True, true. So first you have the paper, which is actually just the direction and the overview of how this program flows, as well as a basic look of what the UI, UX is going to look like. Then with the mock-up is actually animated, so you actually get to click buttons and see the full color resolution of what it is. And then from there, then the coders, we all get our different assignments. The coders get their assignment, the UI, UX guys get theirs. A lot of what's done in the mock-up can actually be transposed into the full build version. So that's why we don't skip any steps. Like every step in the way, you're able to get the customer involved. And the more I notice that happens, the better. And back to when I was a teacher, I remember at one point I had to be a little hard on my students, and I'd say, hey, if you don't turn in a wireframe before you turn in a program that you create, I'm gonna have to fail you. It's automatic F. So I was like, okay, for my business, I would have failed us.
Right, exactly.
In the beginning, yes.
Yeah, because that process is very important, even for business in general. What we like to do, my team and I, is actually record our standard operating procedures. That way, if I'm out of the office and my business partners are out of the office, we could go ahead and hand off that plan or that blueprint to somebody else. Does that work the same way in tech as well?
Yeah, definitely.
And building an app?
Yeah, you want to template as many processes as you can, as well as procedures. And the unique thing about what's going on now is there's so many languages that are coming out every 3 to 6 months.
Really?
Yeah, so people are having to relearn.
They're just churning languages out.
Yes, yes. So people are having to learn constantly. But I mean, if the developers enjoy it, then it's not too much of a burden.
Right, exactly. And that's how you could tell somebody's really good, when they could go ahead and just pick up on something really quickly.
Yes.
And quick to learn.
Awesome.
And so how do you map out the data points in these processes or define the key metrics that your clients will need to get from the app? Because a lot of people, they want to know, how do I make my app successful?
Yes, yes. So honestly, that's important. I mean, a program and app can be built without analytics and databases, but in my opinion, it's just not wise to do
Sure.
that. I can understand if there's some type of software. I mean, or budget restrictions where they can't, get the full app, where they can't have back end. But the back end is key. So with the back end, like you can have different things built, like dashboards. Like most developers can develop a dashboard.
Okay.
They can also develop CRM. It's customer relations management, so that they can actually pull data from the clients. Then that data can also go to third-party email marketing, as well as to have a CMS, which is a content management system. So with the content management system, that's another type of dashboard backend where you can actually change things, as well as see graphs, charts, analytics.
Gotcha. And those are all really useful tools to make
Yes.
sure that your processes that you run, when you run your business daily, is as seamless as possible.
Yes.
And like you mentioned earlier, not skipping steps.
Yes. When we skip steps, it's like we're gonna pay for it later.
Exactly, and we don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
True.
So now how do you determine what functions an app must have? So, before it's first released to the user. So can you talk a little bit about what a minimum viable product should have? So what is good enough?
Yeah, that's actually a hard question, because when you talk about an MVP with an app, what happens is people have to really refer back to the most successful apps and then look at their MVPs. So if you look at the MVP of Facebook, it does not compare to where we're at now. It was very innovative at the time it came out with, but there were a few key features that were needed. So when you talk about your MVP,
Sure.
you have to look at really two things. You have to look at your budget, and then you have to look at what really needs to be there. And once you get those need categories and features versus want categories of features,
Right.
now we're able to scale it down to what it really needs to start with. And then from there, we'll use the analytics like we talked about before to see what the customers really want.
Gotcha. And you mentioned budget. So could a mobile responsive website be just as good as having an app? So how do you determine which is better for business?
So here's the analogy. I always like to say, you could say that a responsive website would be compared to a horse and carriage. And then a mobile app that's in the App Store, that's more like Bentley.
Okay.
So that's the difference.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And so when you're creating these new apps, do you look at existing ones as an inspiration to build the new ones?
Yes. So I'm always looking at different designers, developers, UI, UX guys, as well as I have heroes. So actually, one of my heroes is a guy named Eric Jordan. And if you just, look at different trade magazines, different blogs and vlogs, you're going to start to see certain developers that have a certain style that really stands out. And yeah, we're in a weird days, because I remember when the designer, because I used to be a designer first, now I'm a
Sure.
coder. I remember when the designer was kind of king. We were the rock stars. Now we've kind of had to evolve into this Devinger, designer engineer type character.
Sure.
Not only to survive, but also to do newer and more creative projects.
And you brought up a great point, is that, as times are changing, you have to be coachable and you have to evolve with the times. And, mentors, just like your hero, are very helpful in actually guiding that process.
Yes.
So now, I know that a lot of the business owners out there, they're still concerned about the budget, right? So how do you determine the budget for building an app? Because I know that's a big issue.
Yeah, so different companies do it in different ways. I would suggest going off for hours. And what happens is a lot of developers are used to billing as a freelancer. And as a freelancer, you're just paying a couple people their hourly rate. Whereas if it's a company, the company would really want to pay what their company rate is. They have to determine what they need to charge so that their developers are paid, their UI UX people are paid, as well as they can keep their lights on.
Sure.
And once they get that rate, then they should be able to just determine just from the wireframe or the flow chart how many hours it's going to take, and they multiply that by those hours.
Got it. And how do you properly scope a project? Once you have a budget, how do you go ahead and do that?
Yeah, so with the scope of the project, we try to look at really the full life cycle, and I kind of recommend that. And the funny thing is I'm kind of borrowing converging technology. So I used to teach digital design technology, and one of the things was looking at a full life cycle with mechanical engineering and industrial design. And I kind of adopted some of that to dealing with mobile apps. So instead of looking at it as, okay, this is this app, it is what it is. When you're done with it, you throw it away. You know, how can you reuse some of the code, or how can you make it where it's something that I like to call Lego blocks?
Right.
So like they start with a small budget, they build the first 3 blocks, and then when they're ready, they pay the difference, add a couple more blocks. Then they pay for the next build, only for what they're actually buying instead of paying for a whole nother app, and then add a few more blocks and they pay that difference. So with that kind of modular development process, I believe is really cost effective, as well as you're not being wasteful with time
Sure.
and money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So is there a separate budget for researching the app, the key features, and target market?
Well, yes and no. So some people would actually charge them for that research and wireframes, and then I actually recredit, it to the clients. But the thing is, everybody has their own process.
Sure.
Some people actually do it pro bono.
So where can you find those people? Because I'm sure somebody out there saying, but where? How do I reach them?
Yeah. So I mean, I just see hackathons,
Okay.
and the thing is, you got to keep in mind too. A lot of times, when a company is doing it pro bono, it's usually because when they actually charge for their services, when they're doing the research in the wireframes pro bono, they charge much more for their services. Or it could be where they're young and they have to make a name for themselves.
Okay.
And a lot of times their prices don't really reflect what the actual cost is. But, through a lot of trial and error, you can find some, pretty capable young developers, junior developers that can do some things. But the reality of it is, anything for a corporation, you kind of need a team
Sure,
to
absolutely.
build it, and not 1 or 2 junior developers.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But if you're resourceful, I mean, you're going to go find, somebody out there that could help you, that has
Yes.
the capabilities to. So now, once the app is live, will there be an ongoing budget as well? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it all depends. On the type of technology that's being used. Sometimes we can build an app, and the app is what it is. I like to actually link databases to apps and
Okay.
cloud hosting, so that there's more nimbleness to what they're actually providing. And there are different cloud hosting that have free plans, and then when you go over the data, the pricing kicks in. So I kind of recommend that model, especially for the smaller businesses and the business who are trying to really maximize their budgets.
Sure. And speaking of budget and money, do you have conversations with your clients about how to monetize your app? So, what does that look like? If you
Yes,
do?
yes. So there's actually a really, really good algorithm that a data scientist put online,
Okay.
where they can actually calculate just an approximation of several of the top app ad companies' pay rates.
Okay.
So you can look that up, and what happens is, it's called a mobile app calculator. And what happens is with the mobile apps, if you get approximately 10,000 users, and if you use the ad system like Google's ad system, there's actually a way that it can estimate that, the calculator. And with 10,000 users, if the users are on there 30 minutes a day approximately, and it's only one ECM per day, and I don't remember the acronym. I haven't had enough caffeine to remember that. And the other
We can
thing
Google
is,
it later.
yes. And then you also have to think about the fill rate. So like if you have just a small quarter ad at the bottom, that's a certain price. If it's a full page ad, that's another price. But it calculates that, and you're talking about anywhere from $500 to $900 ad revenue a day per 10,000 users on there 30 minutes a day.
That's perfect, because if I'm spending, my money on something, I'd like to know the return on that investment.
Yes.
So that's very helpful. So in building the app, what risks do business owners need to consider?
Yeah, so the big risks are the really, really important steps in the beginning. Do they really need an app? And if they really need the app, are they okay with starting with the MVP? Because the more that you want to create something that's big, elaborate, and all bells and whistles, but what does your client say? Where's the data analytics from which your clients and users are inputting into your product? And if we look at their analytics and their data, it's going to tell you what adjustments or what changes you need to make to the MVP. So I always suggest they start small,
Right.
get all the data they can, make the clients happy. Because they will tell you, especially if you give them quizzes and, pretty much incentivize,
Right.
give them rewards for, filling out the quizzes. That's going to really, really help them get proper input so they can make it even a bigger success.
I see. So start small, test it in the field, get some client feedback, and then tweak.
Yes.
Yes. And so how is the app going to be found when it's ready to go live? Is there a good way to market some apps?
Yeah, so there's actually different types of apps. You have web apps, then you have hybrid apps, and then you have native apps. So when you talk about hybrid and native apps, that's really what I tend to focus on. And with those apps are going to reside inside of the App Store. So once it's in the App Store, it's in the Google Play Store, and the other one is in the iOS Store. And with those stores, pretty much as long as there's good signage and there's good explanation of what it is, and people like the reviews, then it's a pretty good download rate. But also there's pre-marketing strategies that have to happen, as well as ongoing marketing for that.
Gotcha.
To keep it going.
Got it. And what about post-launch? Is there an ongoing plan to keep on learning and improving your app?
Yes. So it's all based around the analytics, as well as with the mobile app. It's a very nimble device, so we want to use that as its strength and really take it as far as we can go. I mean, honestly, the user or the company has to be willing to kind of bend to what the customer wants, and once they see all that data and they accomplish it, the other thing that helps is user engagement, like post-launch parties, as well as post-webinars.
Sure.
And maybe even if they need to do some sort of gamification. Everybody wants to earn gold coins, whether it's virtual or real.
It's fun. So James, any final thoughts at all or advice for anybody looking to build an app?
Yes, so the main advice I would like to say is never hire a company to build an app if they're not willing to do a wireframe. And that's it.
Gotcha. Well, James, thank you so much for being here today and for all that you do for SCORE. We really appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. And for those of you watching right now, if you would like some free business mentoring or if you would like to become a SCORE mentor, again, our website is chicago.score.org. I'm Hannah Fernandez. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again next time on SCORE TV.